Yo, hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo, welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Woof, God damn it, woof, 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 woof. Hi, I said hi to all my YouTubers out there. If you like what you see and if you like what you hear, click all of those subscribe buttons at the bottoms of all of your screens. And while you're at it, because I knows you loves me, I know you do, give me some likes. And also, too, give me some feedback, because I always like to know what you are thinking. All right? Anywho, today, Wyatt welcomes Mr. Jeffrey James Keys, the prolific screenwriter, playwright, and travel writer. And Mr. Keys is co-author, along with best-selling thriller and mystery scribe James Patterson, of Killer Chef, which is a New York Times best-selling novel. So hi, let's get down to brass tacks and get this party started. So without further ado, Wyatt shines the spotlight on a premier and very, very talented author, screenwriter, playwright, and travel writer. And y'all get this. He co-wrote the popular novel Killer Chef with James Patterson, the best-selling Mr. and thriller scribe. So let's give a B&B a bold and bodacious welcome to Jeffrey James Keys. Talk at me, baby. How the hell are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am doing great. Listen, thank you for taking the time to visit Wyatt. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Now, before I really get into things, I must say something first. Are you ready?
I'm here for you.
I'm glad you are. Because there would be no show without you.
I've never been more ready for anything in my life.
Listen, there would be, well, I kind of doubt that, but there would be no show without you, baby. So this is what I'm saying. Let me tell you something. I want to be just like you when I grow up, and let me tell you why. You have got, my friend, an impressive list of credits that I must tell the audience about. Of course, you co-authored the New York Times bestseller Killer Chef with James Patterson. Your theater credits include The End of Days, Southies, the Biltmore Academy, Imaginary Friends, and Room 407. Your short films 181 and Uniform were featured at over 30 film festivals. You received the 2022 Fresh Fruit Festival Audience Favorite Award for your short Christmas. Your monologue Safe Word was nominated for Best Digital Entertainment at the Queries, and your ghost story plays are currently being adapted into drama and oral experience. And you also have a monthly travel column called On the Go on Gay Cities. So you are very prolific, my friend. How do you do it all?
You know, I always used to say when I was younger, I was a little bit of an insomniac, and I could never sleep. I could never settle down. And so back then, when I was younger, when I was a kid, I would just read. I was a voracious reader, and I read as much as I could. And then that kind of transferred into me actually writing. And so I would just write late at night when I couldn't sleep. And I have hundreds of notebooks that I still have with me that are just full of just stream of consciousness writing. And I kind of carried that into adulthood when I would find myself sitting on the subway, for instance, and it wouldn't be moving, or I'd have a long journey. I'd pull out my notebook and just start writing. And so that carried through adulthood. I would say that I'm a late night writer. I'm an evening writer. And so I continue to just write in the evenings, and stories come to me, ideas come to me. I just keep going with it.
Well, what burns inside of you that compels you to write?
I think it's beyond me. I've always thought that um, uh, as someone who I consider myself an idea man, a lot of ideas just come at me all of the time, and I don't necessarily know where they come from. I think that they come from the universe. As writer, I think I listen and I learn as I go throughout the day. I'm constantly I think I get overwhelmed with these kind of daydreams of different types of stories and different types of situations. And I think I like to sit and watch people, for instance, see strangers. Let's say I'm sitting in
Ah,
a window and I see people passing by. I'm one of those guys that just likes to kind of romanticize about what kind of life these people are living, what situations they're in. You see people looking at each other a certain way, and it tells a whole story. And so I feel like me as a writer and as a listener of the universe just takes that in and then writes it down as it comes to me.
so you are a keen observer.
Ah,
Ah,
you could say that.
okay. Au voyeur. Au voyeur.
Yes.
Okay. My friend, let us sashay through the corridors of time so that our audience can get all up inside your backstory because we at Wyatt are nosy like that. We like to know all about your business. So tell us, where were you born and raised?
Oh man, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh,
And
okay.
I grew up there in the 80s, which is kind of a wild time to be in Milwaukee because it was a pretty I don't know. I would say it was a dangerous city growing up. It was there were serial killers. There was Jeffrey Dahmer. There were a lot of things. I feel like it was like I don't know. Milwaukee's a lot like Detroit in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating place. It's a really quirky place. And I grew up in the city, but kind of like just before the suburbs, I would say. And
Ah,
so I grew up right by this giant forest that was right before the lake. And so I think I always say I draw a lot of my inspiration from where I grew up and from being in an urban environment, but also very close to nature and also
okay.
very I had a lot of access to different things that I think not everybody in an urban environment have, like being able to go and walk through a forest and then just find a clearing and lay down and just kind of scribble in my notebook. And I used to draw a lot back then too. I was deciding between which art I wanted to kind of step into. And so I think back then that really informed a lot of who I am today.
Ah, okay. Very good. Now, I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions, Jeffrey, and this is what it is. What was Jeffrey like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like three qualities or characteristics that best describe you.
Oh man, I was creative. I was curious, and I would also say that I was oh, this is a great question. I would say that I was also um I I was a little rebellious as a kid.
No.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. I mean, how? What did you do? Give us the tea. Let us know what's up.
So I'm an Aries, and so I think that we're
Ooh.
fiery. I think innately,
Yeah.
we're leaders and we're strong in our conviction. And I think when
Mm.
when you're a child and you're a young Aries, you don't just take things at surface level. I think that's maybe where also curious comes
Oh.
in. I think that we're curious about the world, and so I think I didn't. I had a hard time taking no when I would ask things, and I had a hard time not just taking things at surface level when I was,
Oh.
especially in particular when I was young. And so through that, I would maybe step out of line in certain ways to advocate for myself, but also to discover what wasn't at my fingertips.
Mm. Aha. I dated an Aries and a Scorpio, so yeah, I get it. I get it, Mr. Keys.
Wait,
I
are you a
get it.
Scorpio?
No, I'm a Sagittarian, but I've dated
Oh.
like Scorpio and Aries men, so I get it. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
A Sagittarius. I always get along with Sagittarius. It's a great sign.
It's the best sign. What can I tell
Absolutely.
you? Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. Okay, let's fast forward.
All right.
Now you earned a BA in theater performance from Fordham College at Lincoln Center and an MFA, Master of Fine Arts in Playwriting from the Columbia University School of the Arts. So let me ask you, how did those experiences help shape you into the talent that you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
Fordham was a really special place for me, and I owe so much to my I would say to my classmates, also
Okay.
to my professors at Fordham. I
Mhm.
think it's wild. I was just a kid from Milwaukee, and I moved to New York when I was 18.
Oh,
And and it was a little bit of an interesting time to be in New York. I moved to New York in '98 for college, and so
oh,
I
okay.
was I was in college when September 11th happened,
Oh
and
man.
I would say that that was a jarring experience, obviously
Mhm.
for me, and I think that I really throughout college, a lot of people, their friends and their classmates really become family for them, especially if you're going away to college. And so I
Right.
think that at that time, I really stepped into my own in a lot of ways, but I really stepped into my own with a great community of people that many of whom I still call dear friends of mine that I can rely on certain things. I think not everybody has, as creatives, not everybody has, people will have a support system, but they might not have
True.
a creative support system, meaning
Yes,
people
yes.
that will support them, encourage them, be there to listen to things, hear them
Mhm.
vent. Also, try out new things. I think being close with so many different actors, even now, I feel like I do call on certain classmates of mine from undergrad to read my scripts, to hear their voices in it. I will say also, when I'm writing a play, when I'm writing a screenplay, I look at those people that I came up with and I
Mhm.
write for them specifically. Maybe they won't do the role, but I hear their voices and things. There are several classmates of mine that I consider to be my muse, for instance, and so I will write characters specifically for them. And maybe they're too old to play the roles now, but I still feel very connected to them in that way, and so I hear their voices in my scripts and in my material. And with grad school for me was amazing. I think I almost went to grad school for acting, and I'm really glad that I didn't. I came very close to.
Oh, okay.
As an Aries, I was very strong at wanting to go to only one of the like top programs, and I auditioned so many times for them, and I kept being waitlisted, and I thought it was like the universe was out to get me in that way, because I was like, every year I'd reapply for Yale and NYU and whatever, and every year I'd get called back and I'd get waitlisted, and then I wouldn't get in, and so I was like, am I going out of my mind? Why am I not getting these opportunities? But I realized after the third round of that of being waitlisted for all these top programs, that
Mhm. Mhm.
the root of what I was doing was storytelling, and that it wasn't necessarily me being on stage and me being the performer. It was me
Right.
behind the scenes. And so me stepping into grad school as a writer, the first time I got into the main program that I wanted to get into, the one of the top programs. And I think it's because the universe pushed me in that direction. And so that,
Mm.
for me, that carried on. I feel like I had a really utopian experience in grad school, because it was the right place for me at the right time, and I was able to gain so many of the resources that I so desperately was looking for when I was
Okay.
younger than that moment. And so that experience lifted me up to a level, but it opened up doors, but it didn't give me every opportunity that I needed. However, I've been able to rely on those resources and those experiences as an adult, as someone, I guess years and years out of grad school. Now, I'm not going to say how many years, but years out of grad school. And so I'm so grateful for the experiences that I had. And also, I do feel like I can rely on so many of the students and also faculty that I encountered there to bounce ideas off of, to read scripts of mine, to help me with certain things that I'm working through. So all of those experiences with undergrad and grad school, I really carry with me, and I'm so proud of them today. And my grad school I went to was Columbia, so Columbia was a terrific school for me.
Okay. I will say this to you, my friend. You Aries men are just so whatever. And number two, it is so important. It is so important to have the community that you talk about, because too many people don't understand us creative people. They just don't get us. And when you have someone or a collective that, that do get you and understand you, it makes it so much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's also important to have, I think, a shared, not just a shared experience, but a shared vocabulary with people as well.
Oh, yeah.
That you're like, I wouldn't just hand my script over to a stranger and say, "Hey, can you read this and give me feedback?" Because the feedback might not make any sense to me, or it might make me think I'm a terrible writer, or that
True.
or that what I'm doing doesn't make any sense. But I think having that shared vocabulary is really important with people for as a creative.
Absolutely. And people that you can trust, because, your real friends will say, "This sucks. You can do better."
Yes.
You don't want yes people, because that doesn't help your growth at all. So I get it. Okay. Mr. Keys, describe your creative and writing process, from like pre-writing, the prep work that we do that helps you keep in mind the important aspects of the story, to publishing that finished product. So what does your creative writing process look like?
So this is an interesting question for me, because I think that a large part of being a creative and being an artist is it might sound silly to say, but a lot of it is disassociating from who you are. In specifically in your hangups and those things that you might judge of yourself and of your work. So I think that for me, and I think maybe an emotional safeguard for me is disassociating. Like, for instance, in this political climate, I disassociate. I listen to music. I relax. I try to not stress about these things. I think the creative process is similar, because there's always that critic that's on your shoulder that's like, "Don't say that. Don't do that. You're bad. You're stupid. You're a terrible writer. You'll never do anything." And that is always sitting on your shoulder. So I think that part of that is why I'm a night writer, because for some reason in the evening, I'm able to kick that critic a little bit off to the side and disassociate from my own judgments of myself and of my work specifically, so that I can just write. I think that to be a writer, I think that one of the most important thing to do is to write. But I think that we write a lot in our subconscious without actually sitting down and writing. I know certain writers who won't write for a whole year, and then they'll sit down and bang out a whole manuscript in one night. And I think that that's because you're always writing in your subconscious. And so really all you have to do is just kind of like try to cut the clutter out, so that you can just sit down and just get it out. And for me, that happens kind of late at night. I think that when I go on what I call writing benders, is like, maybe I won't write for a couple of weeks, and then just at like midnight, I'm about to go to bed, and then I'm like, I feel like writing. And then I'll just sit down and all of a sudden I'll have like 20, 30 pages. And yeah, it might be like 2 or 3 in the morning, but I accomplished all of this. But it's something that I had been kind of accumulating, I think, in my mind and in my subconscious all along for weeks. And so that, I would say, is maybe it's not the healthiest writing practice, but I think that it works for me. And that makes complete sense. And I'll also say that when I was in grad school, I felt like I was hitting a wall, because I felt like I was all over the place creatively, where I had so many open scripts that I just was moving through. And I'm talking like plays, screenplays, novels, like short stories, all kinds of things. And they were just kind of all open and all over the place. And I went to one of my professors, who is Charles L. Mead Jr., who's an extraordinary playwright and really creative. And I knew him before grad school. I took a workshop with him maybe years before. And we get each other, I think, in a lot of ways. And so I went to him and I said, I feel like I'm like out of control with my writing, because I'm doing a lot, but I'm not finishing things. and I have all these projects that I'm halfway through. And he said, Jeffrey, you're like Picasso. Like, just think about, like Picasso would like have projects all over the place, and he would tinker on something in the morning. He would have a little espresso, and then he would go and work on a sculpture, and then he would get exhausted and go and have lunch, and then he'd come back, and then he'd work on a painting. And he was like, that's your process. And like, if that's your process, you need to set up your life so that you can do that and not be so hell-bent on finishing everything in kind of like a way that feels maybe logical for someone else in another career path. But like, if you need to take 10, 15, 20 years on something for you to feel like it's actually in full circle, that's part of your life work. And you can't judge that process, and you can't force your process to be the same as another writer's. And that for me was a turning point in my life and my career, because I stopped judging myself for having so many not only unfinished works, but maybe so many like windows open on my computer with different scripts and different things. And so I mean, I think I would encourage other writers to not force yourself to finish work that's not ready to be finished, because maybe you'll pick it up in 5 or 10 years, and then you'll have more life insight so that you can finish it, and it'll be more rich. So you have to keep doing, you have to embrace your own process. And for me, that is working on multiple things at once.
Okay. Well, you know what? You might have answered, Jeffrey, my next question, which was going to be, what's one thing about your writing process that folks would be surprised to know? So maybe you just answered that.
Yeah, I would say I definitely answered it. Because I'll tell you something. And I think that, like you said earlier, people in my circle and people who might not know me personally say, God, you're really prolific. You generate so much work.
Yeah, you are.
But I think I'm generating work, but I think that a lot of it I've been working on for years. And maybe I've judged myself by saying, oh man, I started that like 10 years ago. And so it's not really new to me, but maybe it's new to other people. And so I think that that's a part of my process.
I like it. Okay. Now let's move on to the New York Times bestseller, Killer Chef, which you co-authored with the renowned James Patterson. Man, I adore the log line. I really love it. So I'm going to tell our audience what it is. Here it is. Eat, drink, and be murdered. Someone is poisoning diners in New Orleans' best restaurants. Now it's up to chef and homicide cop Caleb Rooney. I love that. Caleb Rooney to catch a killer who has an appetite for revenge. Lord, y'all, this ain't eat, drink, and be merry, because folks are dropping like flies. So look, I got the willies already. Tell us more about Killer Chef, and how did your partnership with Patterson arise?
Oh yeah, of course. That's another moment that just changed my life.
Yeah.
I was work.
It would have changed mine too.
Yeah. So this is funny. I was working a desk job at Columbia, and I had previously been introduced to one of the co-presidents of James Patterson Entertainment, and we just got to know each other socially a little bit. I think I was at a point where I was kind of hitting a wall. I was post-grad school. I didn't really know which direction my career was going or what to do, and I needed to find some footing. And so I was reaching out to people and saying, hey, can you introduce me to anybody that I can chat with just about, different professional pathways? And so I was introduced to this wonderful man, and he had other opportunities that I submitted for, because they do a variety of different things. They do television work. They have books. They have different portfolios, I would say. And so I submitted for several other opportunities, and I didn't get them. And I was a little maybe too hard on myself at the time. And I moved to LA, and I was trying to I was trying to find work as a TV writer specifically. And I was taking all of these really, really introductory meetings where TV executives were just telling me, kind of talking to me as if I was like a high school student coming in and looking to try to get into this field. And so I moved back to New York and I just took an admin job, and I was like, you know what, I can write at night. I can keep kind of pounding the pavement in my own way. And I pursued a few other opportunities with James Patterson Entertainment, and the stars aligned. And I got an email that was like, "Hey, are you interested we're starting this new book series that are called Book Shots, and they are more short form novel, little like not novellas, but they're like kind of like bite sized novels, I would say." Right. And so, basically, James Patterson has like a drawer with all of these little files of treatments for books that he wants to write. And he has so many of them. He is such an organized idea man that he has so many of them, but he can't in his lifetime get to writing all of them. And so he's basically been delegating them to different writers. And through this opportunity, I think it was just initially going to be like 10 books, basically. Once I said I was interested, they said, "Okay, great. Pick one of these books, and we can do a trial run on it." And so I picked one, and I thought I'd have the weekend for it, and they called me like kind of like, I think it was around 8 or 9, and they were like, "Did you pick a book?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to think about it over the weekend." They're like, "No, you need to decide right now because we need to do this trial run." And so I was like, "Great, I'll do this one." And they're like, "That one's already gone. Pick another one." And so I picked another one, and it was gone. And then he was like, how about Killer Chef? And I was like, "Let's do it." And so he said, he said, "Great, get me the first 2 chapters by Monday." And I was like, "What?" Like, this is the biggest, like at the moment, this is the biggest like opportunity of my life. Of course. So I think I had a wedding that weekend. I had like all the stuff that I had to do. So I canceled everything, wrote the first 2 chapters, and then I got the book deal out of it. And so I wasn't able to tell anybody that I was writing a book, which was wild. So I would work my day job, and then at 5 o'clock, I would stay at my office, and I went into I was very close with several of the professors, and I just went into one of the senior professors' offices and just closed the door and just would write every night until I had what I needed to meet for my deadline. And so I got the book out, and it was on the New York Times bestseller list, and it did very well. And I'm so appreciative of it, and it's opened a lot more doors for me, and also just kind of, I think also maybe validated myself as a writer for myself more than anything, because I had something tangible.
Yeah. And with an author of the caliber of Patterson, yes, this is a hell of a validation. Well, let me ask you, what was it like collaborating with him?
It was great. It was a great experience. I did a lot, I got a really great treatment, and I wrote from it. We would have check-ins where I would get notes from him. I would also get notes from the editor and the publisher as well. It was fast and furious, and we did it and we got it out there, and it did really well. So the process itself was just fast, I want to say. It was faster than anything I've written before. And it was also, I did not have time to censor or judge myself. And I think that something that was really important learning experience for me is to kind of step outside of myself into somebody else's, and to really try to embody somebody else's voice. I think because when I was writing it, I didn't know if my name was going to be on the cover itself. So this was Jim's book. This was his idea. My deal was, I can't necessarily talk about the parameters of my contract, but it was a writer for hire job. Like I think back in the day, there were the Nancy Drew novels and the Hardy Boys novels, and those were all written by different people as well. Those were factory writers. And so I think I really embraced the experience of being a factory writer, in the sense, a writer for hire, and just had to embody what he needed me to do in terms of generating the bulk of the material, and that he goes through and puts in his touches to really make it emblematic of his storytelling and his writing. But it would be similar to if I was working on, it's always been one of my dreams to like write for Law and Order or write for a TV show like that. That's not my voice. It's carrying on the job of, what Mariska needs to do, what Olivia Benson needs to do. And that's carrying on their journey. And so it's really taking on somebody else's child, this book and this story, and generating it, using my informed skills that I've gained through my own writing and through my own training.
What was the most important thing that you learned from James Patterson?
Ooh, wow. I would say adhering to deadlines. And I think that prior to that, I was always on my own timelines and my own deadlines. And I was able to successfully meet all of the deadlines. But I think that the stress and the urgency of knowing that you're carrying this product for a titan like James Patterson, made me a little bit more responsible in my own deadlines and in deadlines that I'm doing for other people. I've always written for different magazines and websites, and those timelines are rigid, but I would say that there's even a little bit of flexibility within that. And for something like this, absolutely not. Hard deadlines. But I mean, with magazines, I do adhere to deadlines, but it's shorter form. It's not a book. It's 500 words, 1,000 words. That's something that you can really finesse your own timeline so that you can accomplish that. But with a book, those are hard deadlines. If you're on deadline for that, because you're not just responsible for your own process, you're responsible for meeting the challenge of working with someone big like that, and also a major publisher, major editors. The stakes are so high. And so I think grabbing that high stakes quality and putting it into my own work for certain things, as I said before, my process is a little bit expansive in terms of me working on multiple things at once. If I need to light a fire under one of them, I can. So I'm a little bit more capable, and maybe I'm able to reel it in on certain projects as well.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's segue to Safe Word, the fascinating and absorbing monologue you wrote. Man, I have to say the Safe Word is bawdy, cheeky, cleverly crafted, and with cute dashes of humor splashed throughout. And Alex Hernandez, the actor, is really, really good. He perfectly sells his story, and he's HAWT hot. So I'm going to let you tell us what Safe Word is all about.
Yeah, of course. So Safe Word was written for the 24-hour plays. If you haven't heard of it, it's a wonderful organization for creatives and for theater artists specifically. And I've always been a huge fan of 24-hour plays. When I was back in grad school, I was an intern for the Atlantic Theater Company in New York. And they had the 24-hour plays there for I think for a fundraiser for the theater. And it was all huge stars basically involved with it. Like Naomi Watts, Liev Schreiber, Ted Danson, like all these huge names. And so I was an assistant director for it. And I was assistant directing a David Mamet play, which was wild. And that was a really extraordinary experience, to say the least, because it's like I'm running backstage, and like Kristen Johnston keeps bumping into me, and I'm chatting with Ted Danson about like hair stuff. And so it was a wild experience, but the show's all really good. And so basically the writers have like the evening to write a script and to just generate it. And then the company all meets before that. Everybody gets to know each other. People are assigned into different groups. The writers get who their writers are. And then the writers go off writing. And then in the morning, top of the morning, actors get their scripts. They start memorizing. They come in, they rehearse it, perform later that night. So it all happens within 24 hours. during the pandemic, 24-hour plays shifted to doing these viral monologues. And they were so great. I was watching them. I was really excited. I reached out to the artistic director and I just said, I think I just said something like, I'm loving what they're doing. I would love to be considered to do one of these. And I knew him a little bit, maybe socially, through friends when he was in a different role somewhere else. And so he was like, hey, do you want to do one? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I was paired with Alex Hernandez, and Alex and I just got kind of like an information sheet where actually it was a video where Alex was just talking about the types of things, the types of work that excite him. He showed me like in the video around his apartment to show me like what he had. And he kind of like was like, he was kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of into this kind of stuff, into like a little bit of like S&M type stuff. And he's like, it's just fun for me. And he like showed me that he had like a harness, and he showed me like, I have this cat. And so I wrote this really like wild monologue. I'm someone who, when I was younger, like in school, I study, I'm a travel writer, and I think, as well. And when I was younger, I studied abroad a lot of times, and travel has always been an important part of my life. And I had never really fully creatively written, as in terms of theater and in terms of screenwriting, really written about the travel experience. But I carry all of these quirky travel stories about people being in different places and exploring and trying different things. And when I was in high school and college, I studied abroad in Germany in high school, and I studied abroad in London and in Italy, and a few other places in college. And I always encountered these people who were like, I'm here for a finite period of time. I've always wanted to explore this, but I can't do this back home. And I don't want anybody to know that I'm doing this back home. And so I kind of tapped into that. I kind of got a sense that Alex would be down for doing something a little bit more risque. And so I wrote this piece about, his character who is studying abroad in Berlin and just tries to tap into his sexuality in a different way. And so the piece is really, it's fun. It's sexy. It's silly. And, he just took it and ran with it. And I am so like, it's one of my favorite projects that I worked on which is funny because it's like, it's a short piece. I like writing short pieces, but it's just, I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of what he did with it. And it went over really well. The Queerties nominated it for one of their Queerty awards, which was a big surprise for me. I used to work for Queerty years ago, and I never thought that they would consider my create, like, it's more technical writing that I feel like I've always done for them. So I never thought that they would like kind of lift up one of my creative projects like this. So that was just a joy. It's gotten a lot of different views on all the platforms it's on, which is neat. And I feel like every blue moon I get like a message from somebody out of the blue that's like, I saw your video and holy shit. it's like so sexy. And so I was like, oh, thank you. Yeah, that's the kind of writing I like to do.
You know what we're going to do is we're going to play it. We're going to play Safe Word right now.
Whoa.
So I studied abroad in Berlin my junior year of college, even though I didn't speak a word of German before I got on that plane, but knew I wanted to go. So the first thing that I did was one of those bus tours where you check out all the big sites. So we went to the gate, big tower, Berlin Wall Monument. The trip was already amazing. And the sunset was just so beautiful. And something just came over me. And I was like, look, I want to do something. I want to be somebody that I always knew that I was, but I've never given myself permission, right? Hey, Pete, no, don't chew that. No, excuse me. Come here. That's expensive. Gotta introduce you to my little Peanut. She's getting a little fat. That's all right. She lives a pretty good life. Anyway, that night, I decide to go out to a club, but I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. I walk in and there's a coat check. Only people are checking most of their clothes along with their coats. So I do it too. I enter, get a drink, and then take it all in. It was wild, man. I have never seen anything like it. And everyone is speaking in German, and they just sound so different and interesting, and I just felt so boring, lonely. And then this couple waves me over, start dancing together, having fun. And the girl asks if I'm a virgin. And I was like, nah. Because, I wasn't like a virgin, right? But then the guy clarifies and he's like, no, she means, are you new to all of this? And I say, well, yeah. And they ask if I like them. I said yes. I was really, I was attracted to her, but their energy, like what they were putting out together, it was so sexy, Like everything that I'd done up to that point was just so normal. And they just seemed so cool. And here I was in the middle of Berlin. Peanuts! God. I put them on a diet because she's getting fat. And it's the same amount of food, but it's like no grains. And I guess she's used to eating the rice or whatever the hell's in the normal food that you give them. So she might complain a little bit, but just ignore her. Anyway, so after a while, the couple takes me to another club, right? We get in and there's all these doms and subs, and it's just so sexy. There's like flogging demonstrations and bondage, and I'm so confused but also turned on. Like I just admired what the two of them had, Anyway, after some time, they invite me back to their place for a nightcap. And we get there, and the girl asks if I would like to be tied up. And now, I ain't never done anything like that before, but I said yes, without any hesitation. So she goes, and she gets this royal blue rope. She hands it to the guy, and he starts to tie me up. He asks me, do I want to be suspended? Now, I got no idea what that means, so I just smile and say, I'm up for anything. And the next thing that I know, I am tied, bound, gagged, and hanging from their ceiling from rings that they've put in. It was incredible, but I was also scared. So she comes over and she puts her finger in front of my mouth and she says, what is your safe word? Midnight, I say. Mitternacht, she replies. We only speak German from here on out. I don't speak German. So here I am just going with the flow. And I'll spare you the details of what we did, what we almost did, what she did to me, what he did to me, the times I said Mitternacht, and the times I elected not to. When we're done, they lay me down gracefully, untie me, and a few days later, I head to class. And I just can't concentrate because every time I close my eyes, all I can see is that royal blue robe. So I go back to the club, looking for them. And they are not there, but I meet someone else who teaches me something I don't know. And I go back and I learn something else. and again, and again. And let's just say by the end of the summer, I was experienced enough to know what I like and what I don't like. I ain't really learned that much German, but I learned quite a bit about myself. So, how about you? You got a safe word? Peen, Mitternacht.
Let me tell you, safe word is a delicious delight. Jeffrey, do you know what I like most about Alex?
What?
This boy's got a fat muscle ass. Let me tell you, the boy has a fat muscle ass, and I said, "Wow!" So you can tell Mr. Hernandez that Wyatt said that he has that. Anyway, let's move on to your series called Drama, an Oral Experience. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, man, this is another pandemic project. But it goes deeper than that. So I'm a short form guy. I write a lot of short plays specifically, and I love working on them. I love seeing them up on their feet. I think it's a minimal time commitment for actors, for directors, so I get some excellent people to be able to be interested in doing them. And specifically, I have all these ghost story plays, and that maybe comes from me being a night writer. Maybe things are a little spooky when I'm writing. Things are a little eerie, and I tap into that. I'm also very interested in ghost stories. I've always been really curious about haunted tales, about being somewhere and just feeling like I'm not alone, or I get a chill up my spine. I love that. I think it's fascinating because it's something that I can't put my finger on. You can't say that's this. You never have a concrete explanation for a brush with the supernatural or an ethereal encounter. But I think that when people have those experiences together, it brings them together. And maybe it can problem solve in a way. Maybe it can and allow people to connect with each other over something that's out of their grasp. And so I think dramatically it's really interesting. And I think that ghost stories are something that people will say, "Oh, I'm not into ghost stories. I'm not into horror. I'm not into this." But like, there are ghost stories in everything, like Hamlet, the what is it that everybody does at Christmas time? A Christmas, like the Scrooge stuff. Like those are all those Casper the Friendly Ghost, Scooby Doo. That we are constantly encountered by ghost stories, and maybe don't necessarily classify them as a ghost story. But I love writing ghost stories. I love kind of like living in kind of like ghost story worlds. And so I write ghost story plays, and that's something that I've been doing for a while. And they've gotten some traction. They've gotten a lot of different festivals. And so my friend Aaron Salazar, who's a director, we had a chat during the pandemic, and he was like, "I really want to do something creative. I want to figure out, I have certain resources for putting something out there. What do you have to send me? I'd love to read some of the things that you are passionate about." And so I sent him a couple of my ghost story plays. I sent him a variety of things, but he was like, "Your ghost story things are so interesting and so great for audio. Can I just start recording some of them with actors?" And I was like, "Have at it, have fun." And so he started doing that, and we started launching a few of them during the pandemic. And people loved them. It was really, the work that they did on it was extraordinary, with, I would say, limited means during the pandemic to put things like that together. And so we put some of them out there, and I didn't know if we would, if it would stop once we were out on the streets and back to kind of normal times, whatever that is. And we kind of did. We kind of continued working on other projects, and then we came back to it, and we're in the middle of our formal first season, and we have it's been really great because they've been able to remaster some of the tracks, re-record certain things, and bring in some really extraordinary talent to continue on. We have 2 more episodes coming up a little bit later. We're on a little bit of a pause because right now, the political stuff, there's so many things going on in the world that I think that it's responsible for us to not be continuing to release these like horror pieces, these kind of like spooky things. And so we're going to kind of come back to it. And I think February, March, and we have 2 more episodes, and we're starting to think about our next season, which probably won't be ghost stories, but it's been really great. We have amazing sound designers. We have really extraordinary actors reading some of these, and I'm really excited for what's coming up in the pipeline. And I'm so appreciative to be able to chat with you a little bit about it because it's available. Certainly. It's great. They're bite sized. They're something you can listen to in your car, something you can listen to in the evening, at any time of day, and it's available on all platforms. Spotify, Apple, and whatnot. The works. So. They're immersive as well. You put on your headphones like you have on now, and you really feel like you're immersed in the story in a different way. It's not just a straight up actor with a mic. It's a full sound score, and so you feel like you're walking in the woods with some of these people, and it's really it's cool. And they're not all just monologues. Some of them are monologues, but some of them are also multiple characters, so you feel like you're in a play as well.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Now you're a travel writer as well, because you have a column called On the Go that's published by Gay Cities. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I've been a travel writer for since 2007 is when I started. I started working with Out and The Advocate, and back then there was a website there's a magazine called Out Traveler. Now it's a website. I remember that. Now it's a website. Okay. And so I started working with them. It's funny. Back then, I've always had this wanderlust, and I've always wanted to travel, and I've always wanted to explore new places. And I think it's a root of my storytelling is I like to take in things and listen and learn and explore in a variety of ways. And for me, when I'm on the road or when I'm on a trip, I get so excited because I get to encounter stories that I haven't heard before. I see pictures of things that are fascinating, that are kind of inherently unique to a place, or that everybody, let's say in a location is familiar with, but I'm not. I don't know about that. I don't know these people. I don't know this part of the world. And so I love listening and learning from that standpoint. And so I think when I was younger, I was always like, God, I don't have the means to travel. I can't afford it. I'm not able to do it. And so I just decided to just try to find my own way to do it. And by working for a travel publication, I gained a foot in the door so that I was able to do it. And so I worked with that company, and then I worked with Metro Source magazine, and then I just started freelancing. And then when I went to grad school, I kind of had a deal with Chuck, who I talked about earlier, where I said, listen, I'm travel writing, and each semester I really need to go on at least one big trip to continue that work. And he said, I will allow that. And you can, if you need to miss a week of classes, you can, but you have to come back and you have to write something from that experience, from one of the places that you're in. And so I just kept doing that. And that actually like really parlayed, it was hand in hand with my work as a dramatist, but I was also still continuing to build stories for the different publications I was working for. And so something that I continue to do in my own freelance way, On the Go specifically, is a travel-focused column where I interview people who are traveling, and people who are traveling for not just professional travel reasons. Sure, I might interview someone who does work in the field, but maybe like actors or comedians or musicians or different people who are on the go experiencing different things, talking to them about how they travel, where they travel, what they like to do, any tips that they have, places that excite them, places that that they would recommend, places that they would go to unplug, and maybe what they're reading on the go, what they're listening to, if they have ideas, if they have favorite airports, if they have different things. And so just kind of shining light on how they travel. And so for me, that's a really great way for me as someone who is not full-time traveling anymore.
Right.
Still learning about how I can travel better when I do have downtime, and when I am able to come back to it, to travel on the regular a little bit more.
Got it. Well, I have to congratulate you on your recent honor. You're part of the 2025 The Outrage of Queer Writers Residency. Tell us about the history, the mission of the residency, and what you and the other participants will be doing.
Yeah, of course. So I'm in the second cohort of writers for this. Okay. And this is the brainchild of a wonderful writer named Julian Jimenez, and he's extraordinary. He just, I think, so some of the things that I spoke about a little bit earlier, where you have a common language, it's important to be in community with people who have a common language and a common vocabulary for writing. And so part of, I think, the backstory for this is a lot of times as writers, we're stepping into different communities of writers, whether it's open mic situations, whether it's writers groups, whether it's writers residencies. And I think as a gay man, as someone who's queer, we constantly have to explain ourselves or censor ourselves or try to explain the backstory between certain things that are very common and very understood in our own queer and gay communities. And so for instance, people will give us notes that's like, gosh, this character is really sexy, or this character is really this. And so for a heteronormative audience, it can be jarring. Certain language, certain dialogue, certain things can be taken out. And so it can be really frustrating. I think it's often very frustrating to be queer in heteronormative spaces, but being, I think, a queer creative in a very heteronormative environment, which we're always in, it's even more frustrating because we are constantly, I think, I want to say heteroing down our work so that it's manageable for others to grasp.
That term. I like that.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, constantly editors are saying this is too risque ? and it's frustrating because I think that we do often have to tone down our work for certain things, but when you are just in draft forms and just generating work, you just need to get things out there without that censor. I think that we're constantly being censored as queer people. And I think that when you're creating material, you that's the last thing you need is more censors aside from that little critic on your shoulder. They're telling you, no, this is too risque. I'm sorry. So I think that it's not just fully about that, but being able to have the opportunity to be in community and in a space where we're not going to be judged for exploring our authentic voices is really powerful. And there aren't any opportunities for gay writers for something like this. I don't know any other opportunity. There's one other opportunity on the West Coast for writers like that. And it's so rare. There are so many great opportunities for different types of writers, but for queer writers, no, it's not really a thing, at least in the States. And so
sadly,
I think
but true.
Yeah. And so being able to go away for a week and work on things and share it with my colleagues, without having to give caveats and without having to explain where I'm coming from, is going to actually be able to, it's going to allow me the space to work on some material that's authentically me. And inspiring me I'm always forced to write about straight couples getting to know each other or betrayal or divorce or whatever. It's like everything is It's like writing for Grey's Anatomy. Like we're all supposed to write for Grey's Anatomy, basically, and we're not able to like write as queer people. And so having the opportunity to write, maybe work on a queer script, and not be judged for it is empowering. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Congratulations, my friend. Really, seriously.
Thank
Now,
you.
look, before we leave, how do we connect with you, communicate with you, follow you? Give us your social media.
Oh yeah, of course. So like almost anywhere, any social media platform I'm on, it's usually at JJ Keys. Like Blue Sky, it's JJ Keys, Blue Sky or whatever, or whatever it is, but it's JJ Keys. That's how you can find me. I'm active on Instagram and Blue Sky these days. I've let go of some of the other ones that have gone to the dark side, so to speak.
Yeah.
I do also, like, I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not that active on it, I want to say. But you can still find me if you Google Jeffrey James Keys on YouTube. I do have a website, jeffreyjameskeys.com, that I do need to update, and I think that this is a great opportunity for me to update it. But those are the places you can find me. If you are in the theater community, and you are also, we have a thing called New Play Exchange for those who are not, for the non-theater folk. It's a great way for different theater people to encounter scripts, to read other people's work. I am on there. You can look me up. It's kind of a long URL, but you just type my name in, Jeffrey James Keys. Not Keys like Alicia. Well, you could say Keys like an Alicia with an extra E. I always say Keys like Reyes with an E as well, because I have two E's in my E's. So that's how you can find me. That's where I am, and I'm out and about. You can always see me at shows. I go out. I see a lot of theater, so I'm always at the theater. You can always catch me there. Otherwise, JJ Keys is where to go.
Well, Mr. Jeffrey James Keys, thank you for stopping by. Wyatt, I said Wyatt. Man, this was a blast. Thank you for doing the show.
Thank you. And I absolutely love your energy. So thank you for the opportunity to connect with you. And I wanna chat with you more and learn more about Wyatt. So we gotta keep this going. All right.
You got it, buddy. That is a date.
All right. Done.
So listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Of course. Wyatt, I want to plug you and know, like, because you have books out that I need to read as well. What are your books? Tell me.
Well, the new one, the most recent one is called Nothing Can Tear Us Apart, Shattered. And you can get that at WyattEvans.com or Amazon. And right now, I am furiously writing the sequel to Shattered. It's going to be released in November. It's called Inferno, and it's going to be hot.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I need to head on over to Amazon or to your website and pick it up today.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too.
All right.
Yeah. So y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said woof.